Hey, what's up? I'm Lacey and I am here to answer the age-old question. Is the Nitram sanding block worth the price? So what I have here with me today, I have the Nitram sanding block, which I have had for at least a few years, maybe 5 years. I can't remember exactly, so I have been using it. I do have the original packaging, but just keep that in mind that this has definitely been in use for a while. I also have one of the typical small sanding blocks. This is usually what you see at the art store for sharpening graphite and charcoal and that kind of a thing. And I have a foam sanding block, which this is something that I got from Amazon. You can also find it at Home Depot. This is more intended for sanding projects, like sanding wood and that kind of a thing, rather than it being an art supply. But certainly you can use it for this purpose as well. The Nitram sanding block, depending on where you find it, will run you somewhere between $12 to $17. These guys, I can't remember exactly, probably 50 cents to $1 for the art supply little block. And then the sanding block that you would find more at Home Depot or something like that, this is something that you can probably get on Amazon for around $1 each if you buy a dozen of them. They're available in different grades, different grits. So that's what we have today. So let's go ahead and discuss each one. I'm going to start off with the Nitram. It comes in this packaging, and I actually keep it in this just to cut down on the amount of dust that goes everywhere. Definitely still some charcoal is going to fall out of there, but it's just not nearly as bad as if it were running around naked. It has a little bit of Velcro on there. It comes with an extra bit of sandpaper, so you can replace the sandpaper pads on this. I have not done that yet. It's been working just fine for me, so I'm gonna set that aside. And here you have the block. So it is made out of wood. It has a nice handle on it. You've got the sanding pad here, and on the reverse you have another one. So it's double-sided, but both sides have the same grit of sandpaper. It would be kind of nice if they had a different grit, or if you could get different grits of sandpaper to replace these with, but as far as I know, they just have the one grit. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's slightly on the coarse side, not incredibly coarse. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably around an 80 to 120 grit on this. Then we have these guys. This is what you typically see at the art store. It's much more narrow, it's much smaller. It's made out of probably a chipboard, maybe a hardboard there on the back. And then there's a staple with several pieces of sandpaper on there. It's much smaller. The grit is, a little bit softer, a little bit higher grit, maybe like a 200 or something like that. So there you have that. And then here on the foam sanding block, there's a foam base. It is wrapped all the way around in sandpaper. These come in all different kind of grits. I think this one that I have is probably around a 400 because it's pretty soft, but you can get basically any grit that you want with there, so you're not limited. So now let's talk about which of these I prefer and if I think that the Nitram is worth the price. So here's what's great about the Nitram. With the Nitram, you have this handle, so your hand is kind of out of the way of the business of sharpening the charcoal or the graphite or whatever it is. And it's not a big deal. I don't think it's really possible to keep your hands totally clean while doing this stuff just from handling these. I have some charcoal on my hands, but it does help. It does help get your hands out of the way. It's much more comfortable to sand with this. So it's just a really comfortable position. It's not like you're awkwardly trying to hold on to something. I also like that the paddle is wide, because if you're trying to create a long tapered point, which is what I'm trying to do, you don't want to take one of these and angle it like that. You're just going to get a really, really sharp point on it, and it's going to be gone in a second if you're using charcoal. So it's really better to be able to lay it down. When I'm using a pad like this, I just find that I have to overlap it a lot. It takes longer to accomplish the job. Whereas this one, you get a nice tapered point because so much of the charcoal is getting hit all at one time with that sandpaper. And then I just go in an oval, kind of like this. That way the end gets sharpened just a little bit more than the part closer to me, and that's what makes the taper. So I really, really like that. I also like, in comparison to this foam block, that this is not disposable, right? So yes, I can change out the sanding pads and replace them, but that's less that's going to be going into the landfill compared to these guys where there's a bunch of foam in here that probably isn't ever going to break down. So I feel better about that this is really meant for long term. I'm going to have this forever, probably never going to have to replace it other than the pads, and honestly I haven't had to replace those yet either. They come in such a coarse grit that I'm actually, as it's wearing down a little bit, I'm preferring it a little bit more. So I feel that that's better for the environment. One other thing to mention is on these sanding blocks, something that I've noticed. Let me go ahead and sharpen this a little bit and show you. So as I'm going about sharpening this, what I see is that there is a lot of charcoal collecting here on the edge. So that's telling me this actually isn't quite flat. There's a little bit of a high spot on the edge there. Now that's not really a big deal. That's not meaning that I cannot use this block. You know, certainly I could try it sideways. But we can see there's still a little bit of it happening there, but it will mean that you'll probably have a little bit of an indentation rather than a nice tapered point. There will probably be an indentation where that high spot has been rubbing on the charcoal. So in light of all that, the fact that, you know, this is disposable, it's going to take up a lot of space in the landfill, the fact that this is small and doesn't really provide an optimal situation for sharpening charcoal. This does provide an optimal situation. It's got a nice convenient handle on it, keeps your hand out of the way, and it's meant to last a long time, has replaceable pads. Clearly for me, I feel that this is worth the cost, the $12 to $17, depending on where you're finding it, because it's gonna last you forever and is better for the environment too. If you have this sanding block and you have an opinion on it, share that in the comments below. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.